In all these years of spiritual inquiry, a topic that has bothered me quite often is this aspect of karma and overcoming karma. I've struggled for quite a while to gain a clear practical approach to overcome karma. It was again only through the Gita and the Upanishads that I was able to better understand and learn the techniques and, more importantly, apply it. That's what I'm going to cover today in this video, is the approach to overcome karma. Karma in its simplistic sense, as you may know, is made up of cause and effect of an action. Now, since action is unavoidable for anyone, you live a life of effects which then become a cause again. It is a real cyclical process. No one can escape this cyclical route, as even inaction is action. As Krishna says in the Gita, no one stays without performing an action. The flip side of the cyclical cause and effect means there is no way you can free or jump out of the cyclical wheel. You're always constantly on this wheel of cause and effect. You're caught in this tsunami of cause and effect. Now, for the believers in liberation or moksha, this becomes even more important, as it is only by getting out of the wheel of cause and effect that one can attain liberation. There are countless lectures and messages on karma and liberation. For several years, I've been inundated, overwhelmed with these messages on the problem of karma, but rarely have seen a practical approach to overcome it. Rarely, not many teachings out there. Specifically on what should one actually do to get out of this cycle of cause and effect, to get out of this wheel. The problem is even more severe, since your action or your cause or your effect is not just because of what you do, but it's also because of the actions of others. If two kids were fighting with each other, as an example, and you go and ask one of them for the reason for the fight, they probably will point to the undesirable behavior of the other kid. Now, when you ask the second kid on why he or she behaved a certain way, the kid probably will point to something else as the trigger for that behavior, which is actions of others significantly influence your own reaction and response. And this is because we are just a small part of this complex universe. And there are billions and billions and trillions of actions happening all the time. You're either the recipient of some of those actions and their effects, or you could be the instigator of some of those actions and effects. Bottom line, the concept of karma makes you a prisoner with so many chains around you that you just cannot free yourself. Traditional literature breaks karma into categories for the ease of understanding. I'd like to cover that so that you get a better handle on what are we talking about here. So traditional literature says you have this massive debt of karma or effects of previous lives accumulated in a treasury with your name attached to it, and that is given a name called sanchita karma. The belief is that through each instance of your life, you redeem some of the debt assigned to you And how do you redeem it? You do it by experiencing the effects. The portion of the karma taken from this sanchita karma treasury that you redeem in this instance of your life is also called prarabdha karma. That is why traditional literature says everyone's born with some prarabdha karma. Now, in redeeming that portion of karma in this life, you are once again performing actions. And for those actions, you will have once again effects happening. Some of these effects you redeem in this life itself, and some of them becomes a backlog, a pipeline that gets accumulated in the sanchita karma debt treasury. So you're putting it back in that bank of sanchita karma. This will then carry forward to your next instance of life and so on and so on. This forward accumulation is also given a name. It's called agami karma. Now, do you notice through this approach of sanchita karma, prarabdha karma and agami karma, you are further and further caught in the maze with no way of freeing up yourself or getting liberated from that cycle of cause and effect. Gita in the Krishna says, karma is such a complex topic to understand simply because you're caught in the spaghetti of actions by billions and billions of other entities, including yours. Chapter 4 of Gita says, Gahana karmano gatihi, meaning it is profound and complex. Fortunately, my friends, coming out of this cycle or overcoming your karma is not that difficult, provided you know the secret of overcoming. We are spiritual students here on this channel, and in spirituality, we keep making things easier. The harder part is the practice and execution of it, which is where you need to focus. But the concept and the approach, we make it really easy. Spirituality may be hard to understand, but once you get it, you will realize it is so simple and godly experience becomes very common. Now compare this to a system or practice or a tradition that is not focused on spirituality. There, the concept of God becomes even more and more complex. Actually, there is an effort to make this entity called God super complex in such systems which don't focus on spirituality. Because in doing so, the thought process is that more power gets assigned to that entity called God. And in front of that power, you as an individual become minuscule and minuscule, distancing yourself more and more, and through that, God becomes even more inaccessible to you. Whereas in spirituality, it is the exact opposite. God, divinity, becomes simpler and simpler. And the simpler it becomes, the more powerful the experience, the more access you will have with ease. A student of spirituality experiences divinity every moment, within and around. Overcoming karma or getting over karma is like that as well. From a spiritual construct or from a spiritual approach, you can overcome it quite easily and come out of this cycle. Let me give you a very practical example and hope this will resonate with you and you will master the technique. For this example, I'll take the action of performing a charitable act. Now you may be thinking, performing a charitable act is a honorable act, and hence, why should it get into this cause and cycle effect of karma? Well, that is not true. Because even acts of charity attract cause and effect and keep you on the cycle, even though it may be a bit easier ride on the cycle because it's a good act, but still you cannot get out of it. And your act of charity may be spawning so many other billions of acts, and you don't know if one of them is good or one of them is bad. So that's why I want to pick this example of charity, so that while it's a honorable act, it tells you why even such an act is not free from karma. So take the example of doing charity, like making a donation. Now at a high level, there are 5 steps involved when you make a donation. There is a subject involved, the one making the donation, and that is you. There is a receiver involved, or a recipient. That could be another person, or it could be an entity like a temple, it could be an orphanage, it could be anything. That is number 2. So there is a subject, number 1, a receiver, number 2. Then there is an actual donation itself. Number 3, actual donation. That could be money, that could be food being served, that could be an item that you want to give. And number 4, you're donating with the help of something. That could be serving food with your hands as an example, or you go to a temple to make a donation, or you're going to an orphanage in a car to make the donation, and so on. So there is something by which you're performing a donation. And number 5, lastly, there is a cause of the donation. It could be in the memory of your mother, it could be in the memory of your father, it could be for an expectation, saying you're doing a good act, for a family member, for a child, it could be anything. Now, pay close attention to each of the 5 steps I just mentioned. And you will notice why you cannot escape karma or the cycle of cause and effect. Take the subject in step number 1. It is you, or as they say, the individual has aham or mineness, the characteristic of this is me, this is mine. The moment you have I, me, mine, then you are attached to the act, whatever that act could be, even if it's giving donation. The moment you are attached to it, cause and effect kicks in. Now take the receiver in step 2, which is the entity receiving the donation. Again, the words that get used could be, I'm giving it to my temple. The orphanage, I am associated with it. The orphanage, I am part of. The person, I want to help. All these drive attachment back to you or the aham, therefore cause and effect again kicks in. Take step number 3, the actual donation itself. I gave my money. I bought this item and gave. Again you are attached to it. Even in step 3. Therefore cause and effect again kicks in. The 4th step, where you are donating with the help of something. I'm donating with my hand. I'm serving with my hand. I'm doing it with my friend. I'm going there in my car. Again you are attached. Therefore cause and effect again kicks in. Now the last step, the 5th step, which is, why are you doing this donation? What is the cause of donation? I'm donating it in the memory of my mother. I'm donating it in the memory of my father. I'm donating it so that my family remains healthy. Again you are attached. Therefore cause and effect again kicks in. So if you noticed, even in performing a honorable act of donation, there is that attachment it has created for you and to you. And when that happens, there is no escape. You are still on that cycle. Now the charitable act itself may be because of prarabdha karma, or it could be agami karma, but that doesn't matter. In both cases, it leads to a further cause and effect or further karma. I gave you this example of an action where you're performing a charitable act just to show how even a good act impacts karma. But you can use this for any example and the outcome will be the same. One of attachment, cause and effect. Now that we went through this, now you could ask me this question: how do you escape from this then? How do you detach yourself when performing an action? How do you overcome this karma? there is actually a very simple trick. If you notice in all the steps we went through above, the focus or the center of gravity or the anchor in the action is you. Even if the focus in a step is someone else, like let us say the receiver of the donation, still that receiver has a connection to you. So you are always connected. You are always the focus. You are the anchor. You are the pivot for each of those. The moment you are in the equation or connected, you're chained. You're stuck, meaning you cannot overcome karma. So what is the trick as Krishna gives in the Gita? The trick to overcome karma then lies in changing that locus, changing that focal point to something else other than you. And that something else is the divine or the God. Let us take the same example of donation or a charitable act and see how you can change the focus. We will still perform the same 5 steps I detailed above, but we introduce a variable called the divine. Now you can give a name and form to the divine, and let us say that is Krishna. Now you see, we go through the same 5 steps, but insert the divine Krishna in each step and connect that step to Krishna. By inserting, I mean in both thoughts and words. Now there are 2 ways by which you can introduce the divine Krishna. Recall I told you, in spirituality things should just become easier and easier. So even though I could have just given you 1 way, I'm giving you 2 ways, because while the first way in itself is easy, the second way is even easier. Let me start with the first way. In this method, you perform the 5 steps as I shared above, but you explicitly insert Krishna in each step. Meaning, you insert Krishna in thought and words. So what do? So for step 1, when you say, I'm giving this donation, you change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to make a donation. In step 2, when you say, I'm giving it to so and so, I'm giving it to this temple, I'm giving it to this orphanage, you would change it to say, with Krishna's grace, there is an opportunity to help so and so. Step 3, I'm donating food, I'm donating money. You would change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to provide for others. Step 4, I'm making the donation with my hand, or serving with my hands, or going to the orphanage in my car and making the donation. Change it to, with Krishna's grace, I have the strength and the means to make the donation. Step 5, I'm donating in the memory of my mother, my father. Change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to do something in remembrance of my mother. If you're donating so that you could have a good health or a better life, change it to, I surrender to Krishna the energy that supports and sustains me. So the same 5 steps, we modified it and changed the pivot to Krishna. And you did by inserting Krishna in thoughts and words. You moved that anchor to Krishna and you did it away from you. Meaning now, each of the action or effect goes to whom? Not you, but it goes to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme and divine. Let Krishna take the burden of cause and effect. Why you? Now for some of you, the first way may appear a bit too formal. You may say, I can keep Krishna in my thoughts, but putting Krishna in words like, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to provide for others and so on, may be too much. I just can't be doing it every time I do an action. Why not I just remember Krishna and do that action? This is where the second way of introducing the divine or Krishna comes in. And that is by just saying and thinking of a simple phrase, Om Tat Sat. This is such a powerful mantra, and the only prayer you would ever need. I did a whole video on why Om Tat Sat is the only mantra you need. Please check that out. This second way makes it really simple. You remember the divine or deity or Krishna or any other deity that you like, and you go about doing your action. In the example of offering a donation, you still perform the 5 steps, but before each step, you silently say Om Tat Sat and perform that action. This has the same effect of moving the locus, the center of gravity, the focal, away from you to the divine. And you get spared of the cause and action, or the cause and effect of that action. Or in other words, you overcome karma through that method and through this approach. You may say, all this is great, but what about all the actions I have performed till now in my previous lives where I did not have or no one told me about this trick? What about them? You got me out of this cause and effect from here on, but I'm still on that cycle because of my past actions. The treasury debt of Sanchita Karma is still there. So I'm still on the cycle. Maybe I don't have it going forward at some point, but what about all the past? Well, we have a solution again for that, coming from the Gita and the Upanishads. They come to our rescue. And the solution is simple. And that is, you surrender. Now, you would say, well, what does it mean? Solution, surrender. How do I even execute? I did again a whole video on what does it mean to surrender, but let me keep it simple here for you. If you truly surrender to the divine, then you need to learn or get into this discipline or abhyasa as it is called, of having that conviction that you will be and you are taken care by divinity. Surrender means you are handing over the reins to the divine. It does not mean that you give up action or desires, but you gain crystal clear clarity that there's difference between a goal versus getting attached and chasing a result. The goal allows you to define a series of steps. In the way we did that in giving a donation or making a donation, you had 5 steps that you went through. So you won't eradicate that, you won't leave that. But you will go after the goal, you will execute with all your might, but what happens as an outcome or the result of that, you don't get attached to it. Why? Because when you surrender, if you recall, you gave away that reins, the control, the center of gravity, the anchor. You gave it away from you to divinity or Krishna. When such is the case, how do you control the outcome? So it's very simple in that regard, but understanding this and executing it is where the harder part is. And in that sense, don't delay. Overcome karma of all your past actions through surrender. And overcome karma of all current and future actions through the 2 ways I described. With Krishna's grace, free yourself from the shackles of cause and effect. Get off this cycle of cause and effect. Get off this cycle of karma. Gita is precisely given for that purpose, to teach us and to help us learn how you can move away from being that focal point into changing that focal onto divinity. Get started today without delay. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay blessed.